In a recent high-stakes development, new evidence and official disclosures have cast doubt on central claims behind a controversial US military strike that left a small boat and its crew destroyed. What once was billed as a decisive blow against narco-trafficking has now become a source of intense scrutiny and legal, moral and political fallout. What started as a single airstrike against an alleged drug smuggling vessel on September 2 turned into a two-phase assault, the so-called double tap, raising alarms inside Congress and among international legal experts. In the initial attack, the vessel was hit. Later, a follow-up strike targeted survivors still clinging to the wreckage, reportedly unarmed and incapacitated. What is now emerging publicly undermines the original justification the boat was not headed for the US, according to new reporting. This revelation conflicts with earlier claims from the administration, which had presented the strike as a preventive action, intercepting a vessel about to deliver narcotics directly to the United States. At the center of the storm are two key figures: Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of Defense, and Frank Mitch Bradley, head of U.S. Special Operations T. Bradley, who previously led elite units, including SEAL Team 6, and now heads U.S. Special Operations Command, authorized the second strike. Hegseth, while claiming not to have personally ordered a kill-all directive, has defended the overall campaign, invoking the fog of war as a mitigating factor. In a classified briefing to Congress, Bradley reportedly acknowledged giving orders for the follow-up strike, even as defenders within the administration maintained the operation was lawful. Legal experts widely contend that the follow-up strike targeting survivors righted on wreckage violates both US law and international wartime norms. Under the law of armed conflict, shipwreck survivors, unarmed, incapacitated, and not posing an imminent threat are protected and must not be targeted. Yet the administration has defended the entire series of strikes as part of a broader campaign against narco-terrorist threats. According to the most recent assessments, at least 86 people have now been killed across more than 20 strikes since early September. Critics argue that deploying lethal military force against suspected traffickers without a congressional declaration of war amounts to extrajudicial killing. New reporting this week challenges a foundational claim of the strike that the boat was bound for the United States with narcotics. Investigations now suggest the vessel was not headed to the US, undercutting assertions that the strike was aimed at an imminent US threat. Instead, the boat was reportedly moving drugs toward Suriname or another Caribbean destination, with no direct route to the US confirmed. The US military was also unable to locate the larger vessel originally claimed to be part of the drug route. This disconnect has major implications. If the targets pose no immediate threat to the US, the justification for a lethal strike, let alone a follow-up on survivors, looks far weaker. Congressional response has been sharp and bipartisan. Some Republican-led committees have pledged to investigate the strike, while Democratic lawmakers decry the killings as deeply troubling and possibly criminal. In closed-door briefings, lawmakers reportedly described the second strike as among the most troubling uses of US military force they've seen. Experts and human rights advocates call for immediate release of unedited strike footage and a full, independent inquiry or risk eroding international norms on the use of force. The September strike is not an isolated incident. It is part of a sweeping military campaign by the US in the Caribbean and Pacific targeting alleged drug trafficking vessels. The recent incident was reportedly the 22nd such strike under this campaign, bringing the confirmed death toll to at least 86. On December 4, a new airstrike in the eastern Pacific killed 4 people aboard another suspected drug boat. Proponents describe the campaign as a necessary crackdown on narco-terrorism. Detractors warn it marks a dangerous shift, using full military force outside declared war zones to combat criminal activity, a model they argue betrays both US and international law. At its core, the controversy reflects a deepening tension. Can a superpower legitimately deploy military force to combat criminal drug trafficking, especially if deadly force is used against unarmed survivors? Legal experts say no. Under widely accepted rules of war, once a ship is incapacitated and its passengers neutralized or shipwrecked, they are not lawful targets. A second strike under those circumstances, some warn, may amount to murder or a war crime. Politically, the uproar may force a reckoning. Congressional committees are increasingly reluctant simply to rubber stamp these operations. Some lawmakers have proposed bills to restrain or end the bombing campaign, though efforts so far have fallen short. Internationally, the strikes undermine the idea that military force should only be used against recognized combatants in declared conflict zones, a foundational principle of the laws of war. What began as a high-visibility show of force against narcotics trafficking has spiraled into a crisis of legitimacy and accountability for US military policy. The new disclosure that the targeted boat likely wasn't headed for US shores, combined with evidence the second strike killed defenseless survivors, raises profound moral and legal questions. As congressional inquiries expand, the administration faces a moment of decision: defend the campaign as necessary or confront the possibility it has crossed a dangerous line, one where the rules of war, human rights, and US constitutional oversight collide. For now, what remains is uncertainty, outrage, and a growing chorus demanding transparency and justice. In the end, the case of the September 2 strike has become far more than a single disputed operation. It now stands as a defining test of transparency, accountability, and the limits of US military authority in an era where the lines between crime, control, and warfare are increasingly blurred. The revelation that the targeted vessel was not actually headed for the United States has weakened the central premise behind the strike and intensified the scrutiny already building around the decision to launch a second attack on survivors. Human rights experts, legal analysts, and members of Congress are all asking the same question: what rules govern the use of lethal force when no battlefield exists, no declared war is in effect, and the victims may not even pose a direct threat? As investigations continue, the administration faces growing pressure to release full footage, clarify the chain of command, and explain how such decisions are justified. Whether this moment leads to genuine reform or becomes another unresolved chapter will depend on what comes next. But the controversy has already forced the country to confront the uncomfortable reality of modern military power and the interstate profound consequences of its misuse.